Right, we've got a lightweight flywheel and a small twin plate clutch, and I'm fitting that to the E30 with the M42 engine because this is the clutch plate I was using, and it's out of a Transit Connect, and I thought being a diesel clutch it would be quite strong, whereas it's not. Let's see if you can see this. Right, on these bits in here are all breaking down, they're all coming apart, bits are falling off it. It is collapsing, and I think what the problem was, I think there was bits holding it together in the middle and they've all come apart, but yeah, what the problem was is I've got a dog box. It's a Quay 15G, I'll show you that in a minute, and it's got and I had to make a bell housing for it, which I used a 320 automatic gearbox because the bell housing comes off the automatics. So I used that, made up a plate, bolted it together. It was all a bit trial and error, and then I got the BMW slave cylinder, bolted it to the side, extended the rod slightly by welding a bit on it, just cobbled it together really, and it all worked. I thought brilliant. So it wasn't until I got onto the first stage, it was a 10-minute stage, so we were getting hot. When I got to the end of the stage, I put my foot on the clutch to put it into neutral, and it just stalled because even though the clutch was down, because it got warm, it all sort of everything expanded a little bit, so there wasn't quite enough adjustment. But I had to do the next stage then without the clutch. So the gearbox is a dog box, so it doesn't mind. You know, it shouldn't really go down the gears without a clutch, but it seems to be quite happy doing it. But I think what was happening as I was going down the gears, the sudden change in speed was twisting the pressure plate. That's what I can think of. Anyway, so you could hear bits coming off it and going around the bell housing, and there's marks inside the bell housing. So I decided to go for a twin plate race clutch, proper one, which I had. I bought an engine a while ago which I sold, and it had a clutch on it, so I kept the clutch because I knew it would come in handy. But I had to buy a TVV flywheel, a lightweight, lightweight steel one. So it's a bonus really, but what the problem is the overall width from the flywheel to the top of the pressure plate on the standard E30 flywheel is 6mm taller than it is on the race clutch. So I have a release bearing, and I'm thinking of making an adapter to go up 6mm. But also, whilst I'm doing that, the hole on the spring plate on the standard clutch is a lot smaller than the hole on the spring plate on the race clutch. So if I use the BMW release bearing, it's going to be pushing halfway down the fingers on the spring, which is going to give it a heavy pedal. Well, I'm guessing it will. I've been told it will. So what I can do is the extension piece I make up, I can make it narrower, so it's just the extension piece that's pushing on the fingers. They only have to push 5mm or whatever, they don't move a great deal. So I'm going to get a bit of steel, turn it down on a lathe, and slide it in here. It can't go anywhere. Once it's on the shaft, it's going to stay in there. And there is, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, inside the release bearing there is a like a lip which it can sit against, and it also, I'll have something so it sits on the actual plate. Now I don't know if that's the best way of doing it, I don't know if it's going to work, it's just something that seems like the logical way of doing it. Right, the check this out, my Drew torch. Cheers Drew. Yeah, that's what I'm chopping at. That's so handy because it's magnetic, so fiberglass panel there, but yeah, you can stick it on things. Yeah, brilliant. Very handy when you're under the car if you want to stick it on the chassis, and it wasn't cheap, it wasn't expensive either. Well, let me show you the bits I was talking about before. Right, this is the 320 auto bell housing, the steel plate, the adapter plate, and I've drilled holes for the clutch slave cylinder to go through. So the rod goes through the middle. Right, I'll use it. Let me get the Drew torch. Sunglasses on. Right, yeah, so all them just came out of a manual. I had to put a... Oh, it's just showing off now. Right. This little shaft, that came out of a E30 gearbox. It's just bolted on the inside, so that just sits there. It doesn't really do a lot. Well, it holds the release bearing. So this is Ford spline. The box is a Quaife box. It's a 6-speed 15G. It's rated for about 700 horsepower. They're supposed to be pretty indestructible. But they're designed from the Type 9, I think, gearbox, which obviously runs a Ford clutch. So that's why I got the Transit Connect clutch. Different splines in the middle. So this is one of the plates from the race clutch, and what we've got here. Yeah, the other plate's in there. It's a lot lighter, and that flywheel there was an E30 flywheel that was machined. That was made a lot lighter. Anyway, I like that torch. Right, yeah, so there's quite a bit being taken off that. So that's still got a bit of weight to it, but it's a lot lighter than the standard. Right, so the only difference being M30 flywheel. I asked the guy, because I wanted an M42 flywheel. Well, he said an E30 flywheel for M42, M44. So I said, is it the E30 ring gear or the E36 ring gear? And he said they're both the same. Well, I knew they weren't. So anyway, I bought it, and it's the E36 ring gear, which is a pain really, because I had a good starter motor for the E30, and I brought a new spare one. So now I've just ordered a new E36 one. I've got an E36 starter, but they're 50 quid, and I'd rather get a new one and stick it in and know it's going to be alright. So yeah, that's my mission now, to get the release bearing, borrow a friend's lathe, turn something down so it fits on the fingers, but only, I want it to fit on about, you can see where the old one was. And what we've got here. Yeah, it's not a million miles away, but it's still going to be, I want it pushing just on the fingers, not all the way down. I don't want a heavy clutch. And the gearbox, that is heavy. That is, because it's strong. It's a bit over the top really. There's no need to have anything that heavy. But it is fit and forget. Until the clutch goes wrong, and you have to take it out again. The gear stick has been extended. It was, and angled as well. The problem with this box is it's quite a short box, so when it's in the when it's fitted, the gear stick is quite far forward. So that one's been bent. I don't know if that torch is helping there. Yeah, that's been bent and extended. It's got an extension on it. So the throw's a bit longer, but it is an animal. It really is. You know, you get a sore arm from using it. You have to be quite agricultural with it. Yeah, I've got another one here. Funny how you accumulate things. But that's a standard height gear stick. But I did cut and weld it to get the angle further back, because otherwise, I don't know if you'll see I can't open the door because everything's in the way. Yeah, it was just too far forward. When you put it in first gear, the your hand was touching the dash, which wasn't ideal. So that's going to be my job for tomorrow now. I haven't got a lathe, I've got to borrow one. So I've got a bit of steel, turn it down, I might have to weld a bit on just so it sits onto this part. Hopefully it'll work. I hope it does, because I really don't want to take the gearbox back out again. It is a pain. It's not too bad. You've got to take the gear stick off, prop shaft, get to the bolts. I've got a little jack now, gearbox jack, and that makes things a lot easier. So you put the gearbox in there, you can jack it up, and it's on wheels, and it will roll backwards and forwards. So that helps a lot. But fingers crossed, and we'll see how it goes. Right, here's a better look at the pressure plate. There's it's starting to deform here. This bit's lifting up. There's a split there. It's starting to go there. It's quite bad there. That's gone. There's all the bits in between that, you know, they seem to be coming apart and falling off, and there's bits rattling about. The bell housing, you can see where it's all gone, being shot round the bell housing, made a bit of a mess. So it wasn't the right clutch, especially with the issues that I had. Right, this is what I need. The release bearing needs a sleeve to go inside. So when that pushes against the fingers, I only want the bearing to sit about 1/8 onto the fingers, because at the moment it's sitting too far down, and the leverage is going to be all wrong. It's just going to be too stiff. So yeah, so if I put that on there, you can see where it's going to hit, and it'd be too heavy. So here we go. Not pretty. That will sit on there, right? I've obviously got to cut it down to, that's not to scale, that drawing. So I've just asked my friend if I can borrow this lathe. I can stick this end in the lathe, square this end up, and then this end up, get that down to 43mm, which is not far off it, and then that's got to be 9mm long, so I can chop the end off nice and square, and then, oh, I did cut my finger with the angle grinder, never mind. I was trying to drill these, but they're stainless and the drill wasn't having it, so I slotted it. I just got the angle grinder and put slots in it so I could weld through. Obviously there's 3 bits of steel there. It's not pretty, but it's only going to be rotating when the clutch is depressed. My theory. Yeah, and then once I've cleaned this edge up and got 9mm here, I cut it down at 10mm, right way across. And then that should slot in the end of the release bearing and fit nicely on there, and give me, I worked it out to be 10mm difference from the base of the flywheel to the fingers on the new one and the old one. Look at my hands are going through it. Right. I'll get that machine tomorrow, and then we'll see if it all fits together as it should. Right, we've got a bit made. This is a bit of roll cage tubing with a piece of exhaust welded to it, then another piece. It didn't look like this before. You can see where I actually slotted it with the angle grinder and welded through. So this fits nicely now on the middle. It's the area's a lot smaller than the area on the back. Nice little tight snug fit. So release bearing will be as it was, and it sticks out the 10mm that I needed, which was a difference in overall height between that and the standard pressure plate and flywheel. So stick it all on, fingers crossed, hopefully it'll all work.